Okay, class, welcome to LHLM 101. Today's topic, advertising alphabet soup. Please have a seat. Let's get started. Conrad, don't eat that. Today, we are talking about advertising alphabet soup. Conrad and I will be your instructors. And I'm Professor Guy, along with Professor Conrad. Conrad, when we say advertising alphabet soup, what in the heck are we talking about?
So today's class, we're going to cover what are typically known as TLAs or three-letter acronyms. This specific subject matter we're going to be talking about is different ways of buying advertising. Okay. And so there are different models of these. They all fall into a three-letter acronym. So we're going to talk about CPC, CPM, CPL, CPA, what all these different things mean. So most of you, have you ever, CPC is also frequently called PPC, different paying models, pay per click or cost per click. The reason I like PPC over CPC is because every now and then, have you ever had someone ask you about pay-per-click advertising?
Pay-per-click advertising.
It hasn't happened for a long time, but
that's a great idea for a brand name for a search company. Pay-per-click marketing.
Yes. So can we walk through these different models, Guy? Cost per click,
cost
CPM,
per click.
CPL,
you know what's interesting about all these? The first C is the same for all of them.
We could have they could just be two-letter acronyms, in which case my three-letter acronym TLA would still work, except it wouldn't be as ironic.
Let's start with CPC. What's CPC, Conrad?
So CPC
Professor
stands for
Conrad.
Cost per click or pay per click, not paperclip. And this is a situation in which you basically pay every time someone clicks on that advertisement. There are other ways that the clicks can actually be counted. Right? You may click something to view a phone number, but ultimately you're only paying when someone actually clicks on that advertisement.
Made famous by our good friends at Google with the Google Ads platform.
Correct.
CPM. Go ahead.
CPM gets a little bit more confusing and there's a little bit more math involved. Guy, what is a cost per million?
Cost per million, you're paying for, cost per thousand, which I was actually going to ask you.
Yeah.
Is the M is Latin for?
It's the Roman numeral for 1,000.
The Roman numeral for 1,000. Thank you. CPM, you pay per a certain, per 1,000 impressions. So you get 1,000 impressions, you pay a cost.
Typically done with display or video advertising. And one of the keys here that I think is important to note is with CPM advertising, those impressions can, and not all impressions, this is the Animal Farm or 1984 version of online advertising, not all impressions are created equal. And there has been lots of ways that publishers have hidden impressions or over-counted impressions, and I will give you a couple of them. One is how much of the ad actually loads, right? And so is it all of the ad? Is it part of the ad? If you're looking at a video, do you have to see the whole thing? What does that look like? So actually the percentage of the ad that actually shows is a question. Where the ad shows on the page is also a question. So one of the ways that publishers stuff ads into content without ruining the user experience is to stuff all those ads at the very bottom of a page that no one ever looks at. The final thing, and Guy, I don't know if you've ever run into this, but I have recently. This is called ad stacking, where you can load 1,000 ads literally on top of each other. And
that's nasty.
It is nasty. It's super nasty. I don't want to scare people away from this type of advertising. I do, however, want to reinforce the need to make sure that you have good reporting in place to determine whether or not it is worth your time. So, the stacking problem is basically I'm going to sell this one piece of inventory on a web page to 1,000 different advertisers, and I'm going to report to all of them that we loaded their content, but they're just one on top of the other, like a deck of cards.
Yeah, I mean, it's you talk about reporting, but like you got to understand campaign objectives, because if you're running CPM and you run up impressions, I don't even, how do you do attribution there, Conrad?
You want to get it? We've got our basic 101 course, and you want to go into multi-channel attribution modeling? Right. No, you can't. You can't. See, you keep teasing the audience, and then you push me into these things. So I'll answer your question. So let me restate the question, and then I will answer it with my philosophy on how this works. Multi-touch attribution modeling basically says there are multiple marketing channels that are going to impact whether or not someone eventually connects and becomes a client of my law firm. So for example, you do an SEO query, you land on a page, you get retargeting display advertisements. Maybe later on you see an ad about a video ad on YouTube. You run another click, you click on a Google ads. So, and eventually you call and turn into a client. Maybe you get a newsletter reminder, et cetera, blah, 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 blah. So our simplistic attribution modeling used to look like either first or last touch. The first time someone came to your site, or the first time we could start tracking that person, got all of the credit, or you have last touch, which is the last time someone, the last channel. Clearly, that doesn't. It's philosophical and doesn't really work. There are lots of different attribution modelings. One of the most common is 20, 60, 20, where you basically take 40, 20, 40, where you give 40% of the value to the first touch, 40% of the value to the last touch, and anything in the middle you split among 20%. All of these are theoretical machinations that don't really make sense because they don't really have a deep understanding. My honest answer to your question, very long-winded answer to your very simple question, Guy, is at the end of the day, when you're dealing with a multi-touch attribution modeling situation, you add everything up, you divide, and that's your cost per client, right? Because it's so hard to use these theoretical models to accurately allocate what that looks like.
Right. Especially when you're talking about brand, because
yes,
right? How did you find us? Which I know you hate that, but let's just say that you're asking that question. How did you find us? Oh, I don't know. I heard your name somewhere, right? Was that because you got shown 5,000 impressions of a display ad? Or was it because something else?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay.
All right. Moving on.
Moving back. So that was, that was a teaser for next year's class. Marketing 201.
Yeah, that's like 401.
That was, yeah.
The graduate, if we did
graduate experience. Okay. Yeah. So let's go back. So CPL, cost per lead, has recently come on the scene in the digital marketing space with what, Guy?
LSAs. Another
TLA.
Another LSA is a new TLA.
Okay. What is CPL, cost per lead? How does this work with the TLA framework?
So you just pay. You don't pay for a click. You don't pay for an impression. You pay when someone actually contacts you. And ideally, if you want to throw a Q in there, CPQL, cost per qualified lead.
Oh, you want to go there? Okay, good.
Do.
What do you mean by cost per qualified lead?
Well, if you're running an LSA and you're a personal injury lawyer and someone contacts you for bankruptcy help, you might go to Google and say, that's not a qualified lead. And so I want a refund or dispute it.
And will Google give you that refund?
They've actually been pretty good from my experience so far. It's still early and we'll see how that all scales. But, the tricky ones become like if you only check like catastrophic injury, and that's like, well, if they're technically hurt, you can't really dispute those. But if it's literally like cross practice areas, you check just the car accident box and people start coming asking you for divorce help, they'll give you a refund for those.
Okay. So cost per lead, cost per qualified lead. As a precursor, we're going to come back to cost per qualified lead a little bit further. Let me ask another question Socratically, because I know the answer. What if I never talk to that person and they just leave a voicemail in Google local service ads? Am I still paying for that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, baby.
Oh, yeah.
So word to the wise, thou had better have a very good intake experience while you're running those ads. And if you're not going to, Okay. The last one, CPA. Is this a certified public accountant key?
Yes. No, it is cost per acquisition.
All right. So when we talk about cost per acquisition, what do we mean here?
Well, I'll tell you what I mean. You might mean something different. I mean cost per client.
Okay.
What do you mean?
So I think one of the ways that CPA is often used poorly especially for legal, is on the cost per action, where you're trying to get someone to do something.
Right. Cost per download.
Cost per download. You can even do like a cost per, like you could be running CPs, you could be running all sorts of things, but like only pay for when people call you. Right. And so you're trying to get people to do something, whatever that action might be. The problem, as Guy highlighted, is that thing rarely is, especially in an online reporting system, it rarely is someone signed up for my service, right? Someone signed up for my legal service. If I'm trying to sell them calculators or to sign up for a legal marketing conference where that final acquisition can be tracked online, CPA can actually be really helpful. Yet most of you do not have the infrastructure to report back to that actual acquisition into your reporting infrastructure, right? And so by and large, I find while much of the industry, much of the advertising industry embraces cost per action because it takes all of the risk away. In our case with cost per acquisition, there are very few publishers who work on a CPA model because it is so hard, A, to track, and B, to actually quantify how valuable that end client is.
Yeah, and that's what my thing is like no matter how you're paying for your ads, you should always be doing a CPA analysis on the back end, right? Because I don't care if you're doing a Google Ads campaign, if you're, hitting a target cost per click is meaningless. Oh yeah, when you hear this with agencies, oh, we brought your cost per click down.
Oh, it's driving me crazy. That drives me nuts. But oh man. Okay, sorry.
You should see Conrad. His head literally just exploded.
Can you talk about why that's so stupid, and then I'll anecdote this for you?
Well, I can't even think of why that's even a thing. I mean, I guess in theory, you're like you got more. If clicks were lumber, you got more clicks for a lower cost. I guess that's a good thing. But
rising price of lumber.
You can pay half as much for a click and have, half the acquisition and double the acquisition cost. And it's like, what was the point of that?
True, and very recent anecdote. We have a client for whom we've been working for a while, and I will be blunt. We have struggled with success for this client. I've brought and Guy, I've brought you in to look at this client. You know who I'm talking about. We've brought in a bunch of different people to look at their work, and it's in a very competitive market. And I will be blunt. We have struggled. We brought in another agency to look at some of their stuff, and they wanted to look at the CPC work. So we handed the reins over to the other agency to run CPC for a while and see what happened. And their entire focus was on dropping cost per click. What the hell are you guys doing? Like, if you're trying to get personal injury cases with a cost per click under $10, like, just what are you doing? Like, why do you, it's just insane. So this is why many of you, especially the agencies who don't work in legal, are focused on the exact wrong thing. Sorry, that just hit a nerve because I literally we had this conversation.
It's a fresh wound.
Fresh wound. Cost per click, terrible metric to determine whether or not this is working. Right.
Anyway, the reason we talk about this stuff is this is what's out there for ad buying. Got to understand what it is before you start spending money. But at the end of the day, what we should have talked about was another acronym called ROAS. But you got to think about what the meaningful metrics are for the ways that you're buying.
201.
201 next time.
So I'll tell you this, even before you get into return on ad spend and above those metrics that we just talked about, Guy mentioned cost per qualified lead, which is really important, and it is coming into play in the local service ad game. However, I think all of you should be angling towards evaluating your advertising spend cost per initial consultation, right? What happens after that initial consultation? What happens before that initial consultation? There's a lot of variability within there. But if you're looking at cost per initial consultation by marketing channel, and you have the infrastructure to comprehensively look at all of your inbounds and track all of your inbounds down to that initial consultation, that's where your brain, like if you can just focus your brain on that as opposed to like CPC rates or bounce rates or any other garbage like that, that's where you start making good decisions.
Money makes a it makes a world go round. Money makes a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go round. Money makes a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go round.